have finally been given some instructions here that the cars are coming out on track for the Group C and Group A's. And Richard, thank you very much for coming up and giving some insight to what it's about for regularities.
And I'll step back and Darren will take to the fore.
Good morning, John. Good morning, David. Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, good morning, mate. Thank you very much for coming back up. I hope you've had a good night here in Sydney, because you come up from Tassie or Victoria or somewhere south of the border. And joining us again for the Group C and Group A cars who we've talked about. And again, we have to apologise for the delay, but it is purely and simply all about safety. We, for those who may have just joined us, had an incident where a car was on fire. The drivers had to be taken to hospital for preliminary checkups. But if we only have one ambulance here on the course, we need to have one on standby no matter what, and that would be to explain the delay. But finally, we're back underway, Daz, with the Group C and Group A cars. What news from the paddock after yesterday?
Heritage touring cars, of course, you mentioned, David. The genuine cars, the genuine article. These are not replicas, folks. These are the real thing. So the cars that we saw on the circuits around the country from the introduction of Group C touring cars in 1973 through to the end of 1984, and then the International Formula Group A from 1985 through to the end of 1992, of course, the last year of Group A before the introduction of the category became V8 supercars in 1993. 2 wins already for David Toe in the ex-JPS M3 BMW, the very last M3 built by Frank Gardner's team, and David is certainly raising the bar in performance levels. Personal best time for David yesterday in the first race. That black and gold M3, certainly the class of the field at the moment. Bill Cutler also right up there too in another M3. That's the ex-Schnitzer factory racer from 87. That's a car that Roberto Ravalia hit the wall in practice at Bathurst, but it was a very important car for the Schnitzer team and helped them take out the 1987 World Touring Car Championship. We'll have a rolling start, so keep an eye on the front of the field. The 2 BMWs will lead the field away. It'll be Toe and Bill Cutler, the Victorian. Great effort too also from Ed Singleton and the STB Commodore, the Group C machine. A new diff installed to give Ed a little bit more stick down the front straight, some new tyres, getting ready for a start now. Race 3, the Heritage Touring Cars, Group C and Group A Tours. Here we go, a blast from the past, the real thing. The 2 BMWs on the front waiting for the green light. The red lights to go out, I should say, and we're underway in race 3. Anthony Compton very quick away in the ex-Glen Seaton Racing Ford Sierra into turn 1 for the first time. Looks like Cutler might have snuck in front of David Toe there, David, as they plunge down into turn 2, and in fact he has. Ooh. Toe now ducking up the inside of Cutler, locks a brake.
Flat spot of that tyre is right front. He came in very hard under brakes underneath Cutler down into turn 2. Now it's a big left-hand swinger for turn 2 that climb up for the hill there, Daz, for turn 3 and over the tunnel where we saw a car go off and break a left rear suspension component yesterday.
Frank Binding and the big Army Reserve Falcon, the XT, has got in front of Compton, the turbocharged Sierra. So Frank, a campaigner in Group C, racing for many, many years, up into third outright.
Yeah, it's a car that we see here every year. We've talked about the Muscle Car Masters, and Darren, you come up for that every year as well. Didn't see that yesterday for one of the races though, and apparently there was an issue getting the car onto the dummy grid.
Problems for Compton in the Petty Jackson Sierra. Something is let go on the rear of that car because it's turned sideways on a straight part of the track. What part of the track is that, David?
That's around at the new turn 6-7 complex, Darren. So a bit of a realignment there. Cars have spun around, so one of his either had a suspension thing break on him, or he's come in a bit too hard, the brakes locked up.
I think something's failed on that car because it just turned sideways in a straight part of the road. It was before they actually got to the corner, so unusual issue there for Compton. Disappointing for him, his first meeting in the ex-Glen Seaton Racing Sierra. Hopefully we'll see him back out there for race 4 this afternoon. On screen at the moment we have Norman Mogg in the ex-Win Percy Neil Crompton HRT Walkinshaw Commodore. He's narrowly in front of the Greens tough Dick Johnson Racing Mustang of Bill Pye.
You mentioned these are all the original cars, Darren, and that's part of the category specifications. Across the line for the first time, car 44, David Toe in that JPS vehicle. Now, from memory, this is the one that Jim Richards has raced previously.
Jim actually has his own M3 now. So there's quite a few of the ex-JPS machines out there. Jim is currently undergoing a rebuild of that car, so we'll see that out in the circuit hopefully towards the end of the year. Kerry McMahon on the charge now in the number 18 HR31 Nissan Skyline, one of the ex-Gibson Motorsport machines. Kerry's had all sorts of ignition problems this weekend. Hopefully they've got the car sorted out now. He was a race winner at the Phillip Island Classic in days gone by. Problems for David Toe. He's coming into the rear of the pits, the rear entrance. So our race winner from yesterday in 2 races is retired.
Yeah, we had Frank Binding in the Army Reserve Falcon, the XD Falcon, right on his hammer all the way through that first part of the course. And David Toe very quickly, I have to say, he wasn't going very slow into turn 3.
He's identified the problem straight away and brought the BMW to the pit. So we have, for the first time for a long time, I think, an XD Falcon at the front of the field. Frank Binding doing a great job in the big XD.
Coming down into turn 15 now, Frank leading that field, and Ed Singleton in the STP Falcon, commonly known as Elvis, the old
Commodore.
saying, Commodore. Did I say Falcon?
The Holden fans will be throwing things at you if you keep that up, Dave.
Oh, well, coffee hasn't kicked in yet, that's why.
Bill Pye up the inside of Ed Singleton. A great battle between the Group A Mustang versus the Group C Commodore. Singleton has the inside line. The car
him out wide too.
Yeah, good move there from Singleton. Pye fighting back there on the outside.
Oh, almost a hip and shoulder in AFL parlance there as Bill Pye gets very close to the side of the Commodore.
And here comes the turbocharged Skyline of Kerry McMahon. He's got Singleton and Pye in one fell swoop. So Kerry McMahon up into second place, and he has his sights set on the big rear end of that XD Falcon of Frank Binding.
Down into turn 1, turn 2 they go. We can see Singleton lying into brakes, coming down into turn 2. Backs out of it, almost a touch between he and Bill Pye. Pye, of course, has raced Porsches here at City Motorsport Park on many occasions, driving the almost Green's tough-looking Mustang on track. Car 46 just behind him as well. It's a Cutler who had a great start. He's back down in, what would that be, Darren, about 6th position, 5th position?
Yeah, just behind the Normog HRT Commodore. Good to see Compton back out there, so perhaps he did nip a break there because the Sierra looks like it's back underway, so that'll be interesting to watch Compton come through from the rear of the field in race 4 later today.
Yeah, need to find out too what happens to David Toe in the 44 BMW. He came in a great rate of knots into the gate at turn 4.
The only Mazda in the field, John Douglas from Tasmania, the ex-Berkeley machine, raced by David Cox in 1984. Good to see one of the Rice burners here this weekend. The battle between Mogg and Cutler at the hairpin. 2 Group A machines side by side. Pye drops a wheel off onto the grass, but he's still in 3rd place. McMahon, meanwhile, has gone into the lead, so Frank Binding back to 2nd. Kerry McMahon in the number 18 Nissan. Looks like he has overcome those ignition issues that plagued him yesterday and is now leading the charge.
Just watching the Ed Singleton Commodore dancing around at the top end of the circuit, come out of turn 16, 17, down the straight they come from 18. Had a bit of a look at the rear end of Bill Pye's car, but seems to have fallen off the pace momentarily. Went down to a 143.91 for McMahon in that Turbo Skyline.
George Nittis having a strong run in the ex-Damon Hill Ford Sierra, up into 7th place in the number 83 machine. Now Pye looking to put an inside run on Frank Binding and the Group C Falcon, hanging on for grim death.
Well, Pye getting very untidy going into turn 2 there. Rest of the field starting to come through, and absolutely that's Sierra back out on track as well. Darren, as we see Pye cutting up some dust.
Well, we know Ed Singleton's trying because he dropped a couple of wheels there at the exit of turn 2. The 2 Fords side by side, Binding and Pye.
Oh, Singleton right on the hammer of Pye as they come out of turn 5. The climb up towards turn 6 and the big left-hander behind Corporate Hill. See them on screen at the moment. We've got Bond's fallen off the pace just momentarily, and the Skyline. Now, engine in this one, Darren, where do you think the boost would be coming from? About 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 RPM?
Yeah, fair whack. 2-wheel drive, of course. This is the car that preceded the awesome 4-wheel drive GTR, so this is a 2-wheel drive car. Straight 6. First HR31 built by Gibson Motorsport. Jim Richards, of course, also has one in his garage as well. Of course, he's got Target Tasmania coming up, so Jimmy not here this weekend. Meanwhile, this great battle goes on between the 2 Fords of Frank Binding and the Falcon, Bill Pye in the Mustang with Ed Singleton right on his tail. He really is the meat of the sandwich at the moment, Bill Pye, because he's trying to put a move on Binding, but he has Ed Singleton right on his tail with the little BMW of Bill Cutler trying to get a toe down the front straight.
Yeah, he's come back into contention for a minor placing out of all of this. Side-by-side racing for the Falcon and the Mustang down into turn 1.
Bill Pye up the inside of Frank Binding, so the Mustang probably a couple of 100 kilos lighter than the big XD Falcon.
Oh, have a look at Singleton. He goes for the inside manoeuvre. He's right behind Pye. He's going to have to get Binding to watch out. Slots him behind him side by side. Almost a touch from the rear of the car from Cutler.
Frank Binding wasn't born yesterday, and he basically kept the boot in and kept the inside line there for turn 2.
Binding a little bit of a heavier car, shall we say, against the V8 Commodore of Singleton. Binding throwing their car around, trying to keep his racing line.
Good battle on the front straight too between the little escorts of Greg Keane, Russell Keane, Kerry Post there in the Gemini, and also David Patterson in the Sprinter. Very popular car amongst the drifting fraternity these days.
Yeah, it has been indeed. We saw that a while ago here at the Top Gear Festival, cars like that. Back to our action at the front end of the field, and Binding and Singleton are having one of the best battles we've seen here at the circuit for quite some time. Singleton throwing the Commodore around as much as he can, Binding keeping him honest.
Huge battle at the hairpin between Norm Mogg and the Commodore, George Nittis in the turbocharged Sierra, and John Douglas in the little RX-7 as well. So everywhere you look, there are great battles going on in the Heritage Touring Cars.
The Heritage Touring Cars brought to you this weekend by MPA Projects, Darren.
Yeah, great to have MPA Projects, the managers of construction refurbishments, for their support for the Heritage Touring Cars. Problems for Ed Singleton coming onto the front straight. He has looped the STP Commodore. Not sure if there's any body contact, but we just caught the end of it. But that has really wrecked Ed's chances in this race to get on the podium. So disappointing for Singleton, but he certainly put on some great entertainment.
He was throwing that car hard into those turns, wasn't he? And I think the tyres finally said enough is enough. Hitting on the backside as we see the number 34 car going past there, Darren. Do you have any Commodores here this weekend? Lindsay
Willard from Victoria, and the ex-Alan Brown, Tony Edmondson Commodore, a car that was caught up in, of course, that famous crash at Bathurst in 1981 when the race was shortened. Good to see Daniel Cotterill out there too, next Scotty Taylor, Kevin Kennedy Commodore, his first meeting with the car. Here's the battle on screen between Edison and Norm Mogg in the Commodore. That's the car that Neil Crompton and Wyn Percy took to 7th place at Bathurst in 89, I should say, with their teammates Larry Perkins and Thomas Mazira finishing 6th. So relatively not a bad result there for the HRT in 89. Of course, went on to much greater things in 1990 when Wyn Percy took over the team from Larry Perkins and Alan Grice took that famous victory.
Lock up there from Cutler, having a look on the inside of Frank Binding down into 15. The smaller car carrying a little bit more terminal speed. They're needing to wash that off as quickly as possible. Flat spot the tyres on that one. Binding, though, keeping a fairly good eye on what's happening in front of him as well, waiting for the opportunity. Back to the action on screen. A battle between the smaller cars in the field, Darren.
Justin Matthews, the little ex-Bob Holden escort, number 45 there, having a good battle with Kerry Post and the Gemini. But also up ahead of them is David Patterson in the Sprinter and Greg Keane in the red and yellow RS2000 shaped escort. There's nothing between the small cars at the moment.
Now, what's the history of these cars? How did they come into play for Group A and Group C's?
These are all Group C, other than David Patterson's car. That's a Group A Sprinter. The other cars, the Gemini of Kerry Post and 2 escorts of Justin Matthews and Greg Keane. They're both ex-Bob Holden motorsport machines that ran in the class categories in Group C prior to the end of 1984.
Now, I should also point out a couple of those Geminis, normally for the Australian market, we'd say they were Holdens, but of course they were Isuzus.
Yes, Isuzus, the PF60. 1600 cc's for some of them, and also 1800 twin cams as well. So last lap for Kerry McMahon in the turbocharged Skyline. He has the wood at the moment on the field. Fastest lap of 43.9, so looks like he has overcome those ignition issues. Still a great battle going on between Nittis and Douglas. Group C, Mazda versus Group A, Sierra.
Nittis just dropping the brake down at turn 5. Lost that position as a result of the Mazda RX-7.
3 wide on the front straight between Matthews, Keane and Patterson.
So we are into the last lap here at City Motorsport Park. A little bit of a delay. We've got 6 laps, so under the tyres. The quickest lap was at 1:43.91 from McMahon in the turbocharged Skyline.
So coming onto the straight for the final time at race 3 for the Heritage Touring Cars Group A and Group C action. Kerry McMahon will take the win in the Gibson Motorsport 2-wheel drive turbocharged Skyline. Takes the win from Bill Pye, the ex-DJR Mustang. Bill Cutler will be third in the Schnitzer M3. Frank Binding, a great drive in the old XD. Field Marshal Ford was fourth across the line. Then it's Norm Boggan, the Commodore, John Douglas, the RX-7, and George Nettis in the Sierra.
Yeah, grid sheet didn't even actually include the number 18 car, so he's certainly done a pretty good job to get himself up onto...
Here's Singleton trying to get a draft on Lindsay Woolard in the run to the line. Lindsay just beats him home with Compton in the ex-Glen Seton Racing Sierra right behind as well.
Roughly half a car length between those two. It ended up being... we have a look at our timing monitor. Oh, yeah, they call it half a second. I think it was a little bit less than that.
Have a look at the battle between the small cars here at the hairpin for the final time. David Patterson leading that bunch as Brian Taylor brings that Pine Pack Mustang home in front of Daniel Cotterill, the ex-Scotty Taylor Commodore. This battle will go right down to the line as Tony Pallas brings the ex-Wilmington Jag across the line. David Patterson, the sprinter, is just in front of Justin Matthews, and as I say that, Matthews ducks up the inside onto the straight for the final time. Here we go, Escorts versus the sole Toyota Sprinter of David Patterson. So Ford versus Toyota. Here comes Matthews at 45 with Patterson trying to get a tow. Patterson winds up the Sprinter, just beats home Justin Matthews. What a great drive from those guys. Put on some great entertainment towards the rear of the field. Kerry Post right up there too. The little Isuzu PF50. Greg Keane up there as well. So thanks once again to MPA Projects, managers of construction and refurbishment, for their support of the Heritage Touring Cars this weekend. And also thank you very much to Ocean Seafoods in Drummoyne, who put on a bit of a spread for the Heritage Touring Car guys last night.
Sounds like an ideal situation for them, and as you mentioned, MPA Projects, managers of construction, looking after the Group A and Group C category this weekend. And a fantastic race as it turned out. McMahon doing the goods coming towards the end of that race here. Bill Pye, a fantastic run in the Mustang. And disappointment though for Ed Singleton. Darren ended up finishing 9th after that spin at the top end of the circuit, coming out of turn 18.
The Group C and Group A Heritage Touring Cars, they'll be back out on the track this afternoon, approximately 10 minutes to 2. So make sure you are trackside for that action. And thanks once again to MPA Projects.
Coming up very, very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, here at City Motorsport Park, as we are live on the track, Groups Q and R, followed by Group N, Group S, and then we have our runs from the Formula Ford and Formula V categories. Just a reminder, of course, that here at the circuit, if you hop down into the Hinksman room, which is the big, I guess you could say, dinner venue room that we have here at the circuit, we've got some slot car racing available. High-Tech Oils also have some racing simulator kiosks outside the ARDC office, just on the inside of Turn 1. And, of course, we've got the V-Sport store down there, the official City Motorsport Park store. John and the team looking after your needs for clothing and hats and all those kind of bits and pieces. And Darren, I thank you very much again, mate, for joining us here at City Motorsport Park, as we welcome back to the microphone, John here.
Well, it was a great race, wasn't it?
Cracker race,
absolute cracker race. I thought I'd go for a bit of a walk outside, but it was too good a race not to just stand in the background and watch.
Well, watching the dicing between some of those cars, and we just mentioned briefly Ed Singleton coming in so hard, he was really pushing both Frank Binding and Bill Pye around, and unfortunately the tyres that got him coming out into turn 18. Luckily that nobody collected him, and also that other car that had spun around at turn 6.
But McMahon was the quiet achievement, wasn't